Hey, Kristina. Thanks again for coming on the podcast recently. And we're doing like a quick 10-minute chat about Instagram self-care, which is totally going to be the title of this video. Right before we started recording, we were just chatting about how people will post pictures of their beautiful self-care routines on social media. And we all think that we need a gorgeous clawfoot tub plus a private yoga instructor and maybe a boat.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, go big or go home.
Self-care Sunday.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? That is outside of the scope of my self-care.
Really,
But
seriously. I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy things on social media, and I just wanted to pick your brain because you are a supporter of the health at every size paradigm and life coach and yoga instructor, and I'm sure you have a couple thoughts about like what self-care is to you. So why don't we start there? Like, how do you see self-care?
yes, I mean, self-care, like, for example, meditation is huge for me. And we do have those lovely, Instagrammable moments of, I haven't Instagram myself meditating because I don't have a camera in front of me when I'm meditating. But, like that, those sort of more, what would you call it? Regular advice of self-care is important. Making sure that I do exercise regularly. I start to feel it. It builds up if I've gone several days and I haven't moved in a way where I've sweated. So that is important for me. But I think self-care also goes outside of the scope of what we're told is self-care, bubble baths and pedicures and manicures. Those are all lovely and great. Also, again, they're not available to everybody. Okay, so not everybody can afford to get a massage. So what do? Like self-care could be just staying at home on a weekend and not leaving the house and curling up and binge watching Netflix. That can be self-care if you feel like you just had a week, and that might mean also then saying no. So maybe you have an engagement that you're supposed to go to on the weekend, and you just had such a week where you're like, I just can't do it. So saying no to that is really saying yes to yourself, and that's self-care. Also really honoring, I think, your emotions. So a lot of times we can be told that certain negative emotions are not welcome or are not okay. So feeling angry or feeling sad, and we push them down. And again, we try to be perfect, or we try to meditate them away. Really allowing ourselves to feel our emotions and giving ourselves space for that is self-care. Really tuning in. What do I need? What do I really need? Do I need to have a conversation, maybe a difficult conversation with somebody? That can be forms of self-care that aren't so pretty, but they actually can really do a lot for our needs, and making sure that our needs are met.
Something I've really been discovering lately as you become older and wiser, slowly but surely, you start to see your life with a different lens. And every year I think back to experiences throughout my life of trauma experiences. And I find the further I get away from those, the less emotionally charged those experiences are. And so my self-care has kind of transformed into dealing with those ugly, difficult past experiences and going through trauma, and understanding that some of those traumas are stopping me from living my best life now, of like stories I continue to tell myself. And although, like you said, super ugly stuff, and there's a lot of crying and journaling and therapy, it's really helpful to work through that. And I see that as being self-care as well. Would you agree that trauma management and working through those traumas would be a healthful way of showing yourself love and self-care?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. And acknowledging too, like you said, that was possible for you the further that you are away from it. So we may not be able to address certain traumas that happened if they're still fresh, or we don't have maybe the support that we need at that moment. So, like, funny enough, I was just thinking, sometimes self-care can be like emotionally eating.
Mm-hmm.
And that has such a negative rap in our culture, again because of the fear of weight gain and fear of fatness. But I have literally purposefully bought ice cream and watched a movie and said, this is what I need tonight, this is what I can do tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm guilt-free, like this is self-care for me right now. It's when it becomes the only way that I know how to handle a situation that it could become an issue. But allowing ourselves these moments of quote unquote indulgence, and I hate even using that word, but allowing ourselves those moments of just saying, this is what I can do right now, and it's working for me at this moment. And I think that works. But then when we have that capacity to be able to look deeper into and address those issues and trauma with the support of a therapist, if we're past that, we want to move forward with it, a coach, like these are all really great things to do for our self-care.
I love that. And as a yoga instructor, I don't know, are you still teaching yoga? I wasn't
I'm
sure.
not I'm not teaching publicly at the moment.
Okay.
I do have a couple private classes that I do, but yes, I am still teaching.
Cool. So, how do you feel about the role of body movement in body love, self-care, and even just, I know for myself, as somebody who struggled with an eating disorder for over 20 years, going to my first yoga class and like feeling my body for the first time ever was like so crazy. So, how do you feel like that? How do you feel like the role of body movement has in your ability for body love, acceptance, and self-care?
So looking at, and I like that you're using movement versus exercise. So again, that, I'm sure that might even be intentional. And I use it very intentionally because we do have in our culture such a, negative thing around exercise. We use it often as punishment.
Mm-hmm.
So noticing, am I exercising out of punishment? Do I feel like I have to or I need to? And shifting that then into what actually feels good for me, because movement is really important to our overall health. It is a health behavior that is so important to the capacity that we can. Again, if you have a chronic illness or a disability, just easily saying, oh, just go and run 3 times a week. Like, okay, not available to everybody, but what could be available? Could there be some stretching? Could there be just some walking? And starting to get in tune with, how do I feel in my body while I'm doing this? And noticing, am I exhausted after it? Do I need to pull back from it? What sort of gives me that kind of lighter, joyful feeling? And I mean, frankly, I took up running recently, again, after a lot of years of not doing it, because I realized it's the summer and I have been inside way too long. I live right by the lake, which is amazing. And I felt amazing running for the first time because it was outside and it was moving my body. But I didn't use it to punish myself like I used to. So before, running was a punishment. And now it's because it feels good. And so I eased off on the number of times a week that I do it. I do it in a shorter quantity. And I really listen to if I'm pushing myself past that point of I don't want to say comfort, because sometimes it can be uncomfortable if like I'm running, but there's that edge. There's that edge of, is it challenging or am I going to now hurt myself? So it takes some playing around, especially if we've been really disassociated from our body. A lot of times we just follow an exercise routine. Pain is gain, like all that old, oh, it's awful. No, pain isn't gain. Pain can be injury. Pain can be actually very bad for us. So that's our body screaming to tell us like, hey, slow down here. And really just start to reconnect and learn, what does that feel like? And again, that takes some time, and it takes trial and error to figure it out, and it changes every day.
Yeah, as soon as you figured it out, there it goes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really learning and noticing, is there a fear also associated with our movement? Are we doing this out of fear, or are we doing it because it feels good? And learning that difference and learning to trust ourselves, depending how far into, diet culture has been, will take time.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully said, Kristina. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.